everyone, I'm Satakshi Bharadwaj and I'm a student of BSc Psychology Honours. And today the topic of our discussion will be, is psychology a science? I know, right? It's a very confusing thing. Is psychology a science or psychology a social science? So today let's take a look on it. So today we are going to discuss the following topics. Is psychology a science? What is science? Features of science, major components of science, rationalism and empiricism, conditions to be called as science, and lastly, a conclusion. So, before going into this complex topic, let's first understand what psychology is. So, psychology is a scientific study of human mind and its function, especially those affecting behavior in a given context. So, what is science? Science is a general way of understanding the world. Now, let's take a look on some features of science. There are three features of science. The first is systematic empiricism. It refers to learning based on observation, and scientists learn about the natural world systematically by carefully planning, making, recording, and analyzing observations of it. The second is empirical questions. There are questions about the way world is and therefore can be answered by systematically observing it. The last is public knowledge. Now you must be wondering how science is related to public knowledge. Let's understand it. Publication is an essential feature of science for two reasons. The first is science is a social process. A large-scale collaboration among many researchers is distributed across both time and space. Our current scientific knowledge of most topics is based on many different studies conducted by many different researchers who have shared their work over years. The next is publication. Individual scientists understand that despite their best efforts, their methods can be flawed and their conclusions incorrect. Publication allows others in the scientific community to detect and correct these errors so that over time scientific knowledge increasingly reflect the way the world is. Science came into existence as a way of answering questions about nature by examining nature directly rather than depending on church dogma, past authorities, superstitions, or abstract thought process alone. Science has two major components: empirical observation and theory. Let's understand this with the help of an example. According to Hull, these two aspects of science can be seen in the earliest efforts of humans to understand their world. All normal men in all time have observed the rising and setting of the sun and the several phases of the moon. The more thoughtful among them have then proceeded to ask, why? Why does the moon wax and wane? Why does the sun rise and set? And where does it go when it sets? Here we have two essential elements of modern science. The making of observation constitutes the empirical or factual component, and the systematic attempt to explain these facts constitutes the theoretical component. Now, let's understand what rationalism is. Rationalism is a theory based on the claim that reason is a source of knowledge. It has a logic behind it. Now, there are certain claims that every rationalist must have adopted. Innate knowledge. Some rationalists believe that we are not born with a blank slate. We have something even before we experience the world. The second is intuition and deduction. Rationalists can also argue that some truths can be worked out independently of experience of the world through not knowing naturally. The last is innate concept. Some philosophers argue that innate knowledge and innate concept are the same, whereas some other philosophers are of the view that they are different. The way two children view the same object as ugly and beautiful can be an example of innate concept. Now, empiricism. Empiricism is a theory based on claim that experience is a source of knowledge. There is no logic behind it. It's all about the experience. Empiricism is a theory that states that knowledge comes only or primarily from sensory experience. This theory emphasizes the role of five senses in obtaining knowledge. Empiricism rejects innate knowledge or inborn knowledge. Let's understand why people consider psychology as science. There must be some proofs or some points to prove this. Let's take a look on them. The first is empirical observation. It refers to data being collected through direct observation or experiment. The empirical evidence does not depend upon the argument and beliefs. All experiment and observations are done with precautions so that the other investigator can use them in future. The next is objectivity. Researchers should maintain value free while studying. They should try to remain unbiased in their investigations, that is, researchers are not influenced by personal feelings and experience. The pursuit of science implies that facts will speak for themselves, even if they turned out to be different from what the investigator hoped. The next is control. All external variables need to be controlled in order to be able to establish cause and effect relationship. The fourth is replication. If something different is reported, but it cannot be replicated by other scientists, it will not be expected. If the results remain the same over and over again, under the same conditions, we can be sure of their accuracy beyond a reasonable doubt. This gives us confidence that the results are reliable and can be used to build up a body of knowledge or a theory which is vital in establishing a scientific theory. The last is predictability. We should be aiming to be able to predict future behavior from the finding of research. So basically, concluding all the research, at the end we can say that psychology is not a pure science. Psychology is not a pure science because there are some exceptions. There will always be exception in psychology. So I hope that the question we had in our mind in the beginning of this video, that psychology is a science or a social science, is resolved now. Thank you.